welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that has been winning in silence. But we're back now, and we haven't been on the show for a couple weeks. We've been, taking a little bit of a break, but we are back and we are ready to talk about the big game. Super Bowl 60 is upon us, just a few days away as we record this. And we couldn't be more excited just generally, but also because the podcast is represented in the Super Bowl, which is super fun. It's not represented in the way that we all hoped we would be, but we'll talk about that a little bit later too. We're going to talk about the coaching cycle that just doesn't quit. More head coaches, more coordinators every day, it seems, more hires. And so we'll get to some of the ones that have happened since the last time we recorded. And we'll also talk about, we'll say goodbye to the Rams and the Broncos since we missed an opportunity to do that last week. We've got a lot to get through today. So let's get right to it. I'm Dallas. That's Drew. Matt is missing on the show today, but he will be present in a pre-recorded video later on. No spoilers, but he has some thoughts for you, and we didn't want to let this episode go by without him getting those thoughts out. So let us begin with that coaching cycle. All right. So lots of people have been hired since the last time we recorded. So we want to talk a little bit about each one. Won't spend too much time here. We got a big Super Bowl matchup to preview, so we'll get to that. But first, let's talk about these head coaching hires, plus one extra podcast relevant offensive coordinator hire that we'll get to at the end. But starting with the big job, Bills head coach, that spot was open, and Josh Allen was involved in the process this time. They really wanted to get the head coach right after, being under Sean McDermott for a long time. They wanted to get a coach that will last another long time. And after a search, they landed on a guy who was already in the building. Joe Brady has just been promoted from offensive coordinator to head coach. So my question about this is, does this really do anything to solve their problems? With the Bills, we know their problems. They couldn't really, defend the run well. They couldn't. Most of their problems were on that side of the ball, and there's the problem of, the offense not really being able to get over the hump even this year. So, does promoting internally really solve those problems?
I don't know. I guess it's the cop-out answer, but it seemed like the reason they got rid of Sean McDermott was because they hit a wall in the playoffs. They have won more, or Josh Allen specifically has won the most playoff games of anyone without making it to a Super Bowl. They're like the most successful playoff team without going to a Super Bowl of all time, I think, in terms of amount of years in a row with a playoff win, or there's just random stats like that. I kind of would have liked a fresh name to be in the building. But at the same time, the guy who knows how to work with Josh Allen is now his head coach. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. But we'll see. I mean, the new defensive coordinator is a guy from the Broncos, Jim Leonard. The Broncos have had good defense over the last several years. So I don't know. We'll see. I think the defense is going to be a bigger part of it. I think the offense will be largely the same, and it'll depend on the personnel they bring in to support Josh Allen. And so far, the people in charge of that have not proven to be very good at it. So I don't know if the head coach was the problem in Buffalo or not. I guess we'll kind of see how things go. But to me, this was a little bit meh.
Yeah, it felt like that. It felt like that for sure. I thought, Sean McDermott's side of the ball was defense, and, you have a defense that's lackluster in the way that they were last year. You feel like it's time to go. Okay, fine. But I will say that I like the idea of leaning into your strength when you're hiring a head coach. Like when you hire a head coach in a position like the Bills, right, where you have a very clear side of the ball that is your strength, which is the offensive side of the ball for the Bills. I like hiring to that strength. I just think, yes, I would have also preferred a fresh name in the building, even if it meant that, maybe Joe Brady himself was not in the building anymore. That's probably what that one might have meant. But eventually it got to a point where there just weren't very many names out there that were left, and you go to a guy that you trust, and so we'll see if it does anything to solve the Bills' problems. But to me, it was a little bit lackluster for sure. Speaking of lackluster, let's go to the kings of lackluster themselves. The Steelers went with a known former head coach. He was head coach for the Packers and the Cowboys most recently. Mike McCarthy is taking over for Mike Tomlin, who was there for a billion years. And Mike McCarthy is going home to coach his hometown team, which is a cool story for sure. There's the possibility of Aaron Rodgers returning and them pairing up together again. I don't know how likely that is, but it's possible. And that would be interesting to see. But Mike McCarthy, okay. So look, the Steelers have this thing where in the last, 50 whatever years, they've had three head coaches, which is, they kind of been their thing that everyone talks about them. Mike McCarthy, do you think this is another 10, 15-year head coaching guy, or will this kind of end that streak?
I think he will have every opportunity to be there for a long time. I think if he has even minimal success, he will be around for a long time. And that's the risk. And I think if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm not stoked on the Mike McCarthy hire, because I think we saw in Green Bay, despite he did win a Super Bowl, but we saw in Green Bay and we saw in Dallas, like, he is a coach who does it enough for you to be a playoff team, but I don't know if he's a coach that you really, get excited about what he brings to the table. And for a Steelers fan in particular, that's scary because they clearly have a lot of patience for being fine. Like as long as the team is in the playoff hunt, as they have been forever, basically, then the coach can keep his job. And I think Mike McCarthy is good enough to keep them in the playoff hunt year in and year out. It's just, will they give him the same leash that they've given their other head coaches? The other ones won Super Bowls pretty early on. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that. I don't think the Steelers are a team that appear particularly close to a Super Bowl contention, particularly the fact that they don't have a long-term answer at quarterback. They don't even have a short-term answer at the moment. Maybe Rodgers comes back for another year, but even then, like, are you excited about that? It's just the Steelers that we've come to know are, we talked about the Astros in the last in the baseball episode. It's kind of the same thing. Like, I grew up being very afraid of the Steelers. They were very scary to play. Broncos had big matchups with them in the playoffs over the years. They're a team I always feared, and basically since Antonio Brown left that team, the same level of fear has not been there.
Yeah, totally. I think that, this is one of those things where you hire a guy who is known, like, what he is. It's like the Steelers' whole thing. Like, they bring in guys who what their thing is, and they're reliable, and they're going to give you that thing, and they like that. They like that idea of stability that brings, and so they're going with Mike McCarthy here, and we'll see how that goes for them. But I think it would be interesting if Aaron Rodgers comes back and you get another year of them together. Kind of end it maybe end his career the way that it kind of began. Also, that'd be interesting. So, if he comes back, I think it'll be more interesting. But if he doesn't, then I think this is kind of something that I don't really have anything to really say about. because it's just going to be more of the same. It'll probably be more of the same. He might win a wild card game, and that's an improvement. But
Mhm.
from there, I don't know much beyond that. Okay, moving on to the Browns. The Browns also hired a head coach since the last time we recorded, and that was Todd Monkin. So they stole Todd Monkin from the Baltimore Ravens, their division rival. He was their offensive coordinator. John Harbaugh out in Baltimore. So you figure that a new staff will be coming in, and Todd Monken saw his opportunity to take a job, and he took the Browns job, which a lot of people did not take. A lot of people made a big deal about pulling themselves out of contention for that job, and so Monken's the guy. The only question I have about this is his quarterback one in the building right now?
For 2026,
Yeah.
probably. I'm guessing they're going to give it to Shadur Sanders coming out of camp and see what he does in his second season. Uh, Not that this means anything because he was objectively bad this year, but he was a Pro Bowler. He's got that on his resume. So,
Yep.
The Pro Bowl apparently happened too, by the way.
It did.
First time hearing of it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think their long term answer at quarterback is there. And I don't think their long term answer at head coach is there because I don't think they can have a long term answer at head coach. I think
Yeah.
this is just one of the worst run organizations in football, in all of sports, really. I don't see this turning around anytime soon. Shadur Sanders, regardless of what you think about him, this is not the place where he's going to succeed, if there is such a place. So I, you know, it's kind of, I didn't really care who got this job. It was just like, that's not gonna it's not gonna move me.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll find out, what Todd Monken is made out of as a play caller. Because Shadur Sanders, while he may have a promising uh, career ahead of him, is not yet Lamar Jackson, and they don't have a Derrick Henry who can stabilize things for you. They don't have, Zay Flowers who can, really take the top off of things. The Ravens have a lot that the Browns don't have. And so we'll see what he's made of as a play caller here. But speaking of guys who, we kind of know what they're made of as play caller, but we'll see if they can make something happen with an offense that everyone, it seems, has tried to make work but hasn't found a way yet. The Cardinals hired Mike LaFleur to be their head coach. So, alluding to or talking about specifically what I just alluded to, is this the guy that can finally get Kyler Murray in this offense right? Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, maybe the best tight end in football, up there with one of two probably. And you have maybe James Conner coming back. I don't know if he's coming back on a contract this year. I don't know if his contract's still with them, but he won't be injured this year, so he's interesting. Is this the guy that can finally get that offense right and get it moving somewhere?
Well, I think he has potential to do that. I just don't know if it'll be with Kyler Murray. I think maybe this organization is ready to move on from him, and Mike LaFleur can bring in his own quarterback, whoever that may be. Whether that's from the draft or maybe a stopgap in free agency. We'll see. Certain members of the Sean McVay coaching tree have had success, but certain ones have not. The Cardinals face an uphill fight because they don't really have that answer at quarterback, and they are in a division with, let's see, the team that's in the Super Bowl, the team that came within 6 points of being in the Super Bowl, and the team that, if not ravaged by injuries, had a chance at the Super Bowl themselves. So 3 playoff teams in your division, that's not great. I think the Cardinals are maybe, regardless of how good their roster ends up being, regardless of how good Mike LaFleur ends up being as a head coach, they might be more than a year away from being a relevant football team again, but we'll see. I imagine they give them at least a couple of years leash here.
Yeah. Yeah, with the amount of time that Jonathan Gannon got, you figure they'll give, this guy a good run as well. And so, yeah, I also think that maybe it won't be Kyler Murray for the Cardinals this year. We'll see how that ends up. But I've made my thoughts on Kyler Murray clear on this show. I don't think he has any more potential. Like I think we know what he is capable of. And it's just not the ceiling everyone hoped for when they saw him play his first couple years or his first few years. And so we'll see if he ends up on a different team or if he ends up, backing somebody up here. But I think Mike LaFleur, he's part of that Shanahan, McVay, family of coaches who really takes things really seriously. And so he's going to come into a team that you feel like is talented, and he's going to try to take them seriously. And so if that involves, potentially moving on from Kyler Murray one way or the other, I bet he would do it because other coaches in his lineage of coaches, the coaches he learned under, they've done similar things, and so I think that, once he recognizes what he has in Kyler Murray, he'll be able to decide whether he likes it or not. And I think he'll make the choice to move on if he doesn't like it. Okay, there's one more head coaching spot that hasn't officially been filled yet. So we will, in the interest of time, wait until it is officially filled to talk about it. But because I wanted to get to one little extra here for a couple minutes because I heard a name this week that I have not heard in a long, long time. What feels like a long, long time. And I wanted to know how it made you feel, Drew, when you see that somebody, namely the Cardinals, we're still talking about the Cardinals actually, it actually kind of works, have hired Nathaniel Hackett to be their offensive coordinator, a much maligned individual in terms of his coaching career and what happened when he was given a job last couple times maybe. But so yeah, how did it make you feel when you heard this name again after what feels like forever?
Well, I keep tabs on him. I always keep my eye on this guy. He's, there have been a few bad coaching hires from my favorite teams over the years, but I don't think anything matches up to how spectacular a failure Nathaniel Hackett was as the head coach of the Denver Broncos. It looked like he was going to go to Miami to be the quarterback's coach. Then obviously, they're allowed to take what would be a promotion to go elsewhere. So he's going to Arizona to be the Cardinals offensive coordinator. And I don't see what is keeping this guy employed. He was with the Jets in the Aaron Rodgers era. Like, I didn't see much inspired offense there. The only time he was a play caller was as head coach of the Broncos. And that basically derailed Russell Wilson's entire career. I don't get it with this guy. Maybe the hope is he's all buddy with Aaron Rodgers. They can lure him to have a 1-year stop in Arizona, but like, I don't know. I don't know about that. So I'm sure maybe he's a good interviewer. He seems like, an affable fellow, but I'm not, I wouldn't want him sniffing my football team.
Yeah, if you're gonna bring in a guy who's not gonna call the plays, I would have brought in someone who we don't know about, so we can learn about somebody and watch them kind of grow under the head coach who's the play caller. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how this has kind of worked in the past when you have a play caller head coach on either side of the ball. Or you bring in someone who is the opposite, like really experienced, and the head coach can lean on them for their coaching experience, and Nathaniel Hackett doesn't fit either one of those columns. So it was very strange, but quarterback coach felt like a good spot for him as far as what being on a staff might look like. But offensive coordinator is very funny, even if he's not going to be calling plays, which he's not going to be. But even though he's going to be right there on the sideline, and we're all going to be looking at him again. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see if this can start something else for him. another phase. But it'd be hard to believe. But I mean, who knows these days? Okay, so yeah, that was just a bit of fun that I wanted to have before we get into the meat of the show here. So what we're going to do next is we are going to give Drew and Matt the chance to eulogize their teams because we missed our week after championship weekend. And the Broncos and the Rams lost their respective championship games. So let's start with the Broncos and let's us have our in memoriam segment now. So let us say goodbye to the 2025 Broncos. Drew, let us have it.
Yeah. Really bummer end to the season. Really a slog of an AFC championship game. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, but Bo Nix got hurt, so he didn't play. And that's just kind of the worst way for a season to end, is like one with so much hope, getting the 1 seed in the AFC. Broncos are officially back in contention. And we lose the AFC championship game because we had a backup quarterback who made just, an astoundingly dumb play that gave the Patriots a short field one time during the whole game, and that was their one touchdown drive, and we lose 10-7. That's it's just a bummer. It was in the snow the second half. Like, it was just not a fun game to watch. But it was a fun season. Bo Nix showed a lot, and I'm even more in on him now based on how that game went without him. Seeing, how quickly that offensive line gets exposed when you don't have a quarterback who can escape pockets the way Bo Nix can, who can throw on the run the way Bo Nix can. And I just have no doubt that we would have won that game if Bo Nix was the quarterback for 4 quarters. You lose 10-7. The defense played great. That's the bummer of it all. But there's a lot of hope around this team. We're going to have some cap space open up. It's not like we're going to be like flush with cash, but Russell Wilson will no longer be on the books. Wow. Bo Nix is still on a cheap contract, and Sean Payton has turned this team around, and I like the direction we're headed. I would love to get, maybe a premier wide receiver if that's possible. Sure. Get some more weapons for Bo Nix, because the receiving room is like a lot of solid number 3s is kind of how I feel. And then Cortland Sutton is like a low 1, a high 2. It's kind of how I would put him. But I'd like a more dominant receiver out there, or a tight end or something like that. I'd like to bring back J.K. Dobbins. He got hurt, but he was really good when he was healthy this year. But we'll see what the offseason brings. I like the direction of this team. I still feel great about our chances for future years. Whether or not we'll be the number 1 seed in the AFC ever again, anytime soon, I don't know. But I've seen what Bo Nix can do in crunch time in big games, and I like what I see. So, bummer way to end it. If the Patriots end up beating the Seahawks, which, spoiler alert, I don't really expect, I'll be really, really mad that Bo Nix got hurt. But as of now, it's like I'm kind of at peace with how it all went down. And, this has been a not very stressful 2 weeks, where normally I would have been stressed out of my mind. So that's me looking on the bright side.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure I missed what feels like so many episodes, but I really only missed 2, something like that. But I'm sure that it was talked about, the to go from the win in the divisional to the aftermath of that to the championship game that we got, and versus the one that we could have had. It was just the whole time you got to just be sitting there thinking, well, we could have won this game. And with it very easy, we could have won. And I can't imagine what that feels like. It's just sick. But definitely reason for expecting that you can be back in the spot next year for sure. No question, because yeah, like you have a quarterback who can step up in close games, and it doesn't seem like that's not the kind of ability. The way he does it, doesn't seem like the kind of ability that just goes away while you're still a young quarterback. He's got the good stuff. So yeah, plenty of reason to think he'll be back in this spot. So, but yeah, unfortunately, we must say goodbye to the 2025 Broncos. So now what we're gonna do is, in this spot, Matt's gonna put in the video he recorded, saying goodbye to the Rams. Giving them a proper funeral, proper eulogy. I offered to do it. But that would be a little mean, a little rude, perhaps. But I wouldn't have been as kind, perhaps, as Matt was. But he's going to drop his video in here. He's going to say goodbye to the Rams, and then he's going to give his thoughts on the Super Bowl, and then we'll give our thoughts on the Super Bowl next. So Matt, drop that video in right here, and we'll be right back to talk about our thoughts on the Super Bowl. Do it right now. I'm still talking. Have you done it? Did you do it?
Wow, what a great video.
Wow.
Hey guys, sorry I couldn't be there. Super bummed I can't talk about the Super Bowl and all things football this week, but I am going to give a quick eulogy to my Rams. Rest in peace. Yeah, I mean, I thought this was our year. It felt like we had the magic, and it just didn't turn out that way. It happens to the best of us, and Matthew Stafford is like the first quarterback ever to throw for over 800 yards, and it was like 8 or 9 touchdowns, no interceptions, and lose both games to that team. So props to the Seahawks, props to Sam and this offense that they've got going. But it is officially the end of the road for the 2025 Rams, and that is a sad sentence. I really felt like this might have been the year we could have done it, and I really believe if we made the Super Bowl, it would have been our year. As I felt like whoever came out of that game was going to be the heavy favorite regardless, but it is what it is. No point being bitter. Dallas, cause of death for the Rams, I got to blame our corners and our defense a little bit. Just felt like at the end of the game, they did not have the ability to lock in and get any significant pressure. We were just giving up, not chunk plays, but big enough plays that just felt like we never were getting to crucial third downs that much. And so there's a lot of reasons why we lost that game, some questionable play calls, but at the end of the day, me and Seahawks were the better team, and that's that. And now we look forward to the Super Bowl, and I've got my thoughts, and my thoughts are I think the Patriots are going to get killed. I really do believe that the Super Bowl, if you will, was the Rams versus Seahawks. I don't know that this is going to be a close one, and Dallas, I know you're going to hate hearing all this, but I feel I was talking to one of my kids earlier. Excuse that. I was talking to one of my students earlier, and I really think it's going to be a pretty significant blowout, 20 plus point blowout. I could see it being 34-14, something like that. I just think Drake May has not been that good in these playoffs, and he's kind of been able to escape by his defense playing against really bad offenses. Me and Drew talked about this a couple weeks ago, but he barely escaped with a win against the Texans, and CJ Stroud, by all metrics, would have been a better player if he had spiked the ball every single time he went back to throw it. It's one of those things. I just think he's going to get exposed again. I really believe that this defense is the perfect modern NFL defense. We've got the defensive rookie of the year. We've got all sorts of just dudes on that side of the ball. And I think Sam's going to be able to do enough that it's going to be a pretty easy win. Because I think he's going to get a lot of favorable field position. I think this could be a game where we see multiple turnovers by Drake May. And Sam, he's not going to have to outduel Stafford this week. I think it's just one of those, if he can manage the game, limit the turnovers, I think this is a pretty easy win for the Seahawks. So, should be good. I'm excited to see what it is, see what happens. Excited to see the Super Bowl halftime show. Bad Bunny's cool. I'm excited for Green Day, honestly. I love Green Day, so it's going to be a good time. And yeah, congrats to Dallas. I mean, we had 3 out of the 4 final spots on the podcast. So overall, I mean, first year of the pod, I'd say that's pretty good for our teams. Yeah, so congrats, Dallas. You guys are doing it. And go Sam, man. It'd be pretty cool to get a Super Bowl trophy and maybe a Super Bowl MVP in the family here. So later, dudes. Hope to be back next week. Peace.
Matt, I think you had some good points, but here's what we think.
He had some great points. You heard Matt break down the Super Bowl there for you, and we are going to talk about it now from our perspective. We'll get a little more in detail here with the rest of our episode. We are going to spend the rest of the time on Super Bowl 60, which, as you know by now, is between the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. So first up, how does the Super Bowl make you feel? Whenever you get a matchup, I like to do a temperature check with my friends, with people who I know who like football, and who follow it a lot. When you see Seahawks versus Patriots, how does that make you feel? Do you feel like you're looking forward to it? Do you feel like meh? Do you feel like you wish it was somebody else? I know you wish on the AFC side it was somebody else, but you know what I mean? Do you wish for a different one? What do you think?
I think, just personally, obviously not my favorite matchup. Two teams that have been the source of some sore moments as a Broncos fan in my life. So,
True.
Not two of my favorite teams. I do think, it would be slightly more interesting, no offense to the Patriots, if it was a team like the Bills or the Broncos, of course, but at the Patriots just I don't know, it's I don't want to disrespect them because they clearly are a good team. You don't get to the Super Bowl without being good, but it just seems like everything just fell into place for them this year, where they had a pretty easy schedule. You still have to win the games, but they had a pretty easy schedule. And then things just kind of fell right for them in the playoffs. And I will give them a lot of credit for that win against the Texans, because, yes, CJ Stroud played terribly, but the Patriots made him play terribly. There's two sides to that. So I do think it wasn't my favorite matchup. It wasn't what I would have picked. But taking a step back, I think it will be exciting. Totally different teams, obviously, than 11 years ago when they played. But the Seahawks, to me, have been the best team in football since that comeback against the Rams in December. And, you could argue before that if, that was when I first kind of realized how good they really were. But it makes sense to me that they would come out of the NFC, and I just kind of wish it was a better team from the AFC, but I don't want to get on here and disrespect the Patriots. There's definitely a chance they make this a game, and it's not decided before it starts.
For sure. Yeah. And so, I think that those are all great, great points. I think it makes sense to me how that Super Bowl makes you feel. If we ask me that question, it'd be kind of obvious, so I'll just skip it. But obviously I'm feeling really good about the Seahawks making the Super Bowl. And what I want to talk about next is how these teams got here. So I'll do a little talking about how the Seahawks got here, and then we can kind of piece together the Patriots season together if you want. But I know we didn't put Matt on that, but let's talk about it. So Seahawks, how did they get here? Well, in the offseason, they made some moves that were maligned by some at the time, myself chief among them. Geno Smith left the building, DK Metcalf left the building, and I did not, among others, I did not think that the people they brought in to not replace, for Sam Darnold to replace Geno Smith, I didn't think that was going to work out particularly well for Seattle. I didn't think that he was much better than Geno would be for Seattle. And then not that Cooper Kupp was brought in to replace DK Metcalf, but they got rid of DK Metcalf and brought Cooper Kupp in. And I was like, well, at this stage of his career, how much impact is he going to have? I don't like that. And I also, you know, I will, and I'm saying this about 20 minutes after Jackson Smith and Jigba won Offensive Player of the Year. I didn't think that Jackson Smith and Jigba could be number one. And so that's where we started, by making those moves. And it was those moves, among a couple others, that are the reason that we're here. They're the reason the Seahawks are in the game in the Super Bowl. These guys, Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, the people they drafted, like Gray Zabel and Nick Emanwari, they are all huge parts of the reason that they made it this far. As you go through the course of the season starts, the offense is high flying. They're beating people within an inch of their life, like, because Sam Darnold is just launching to Jackson Smith and Jigba every game, multiple times a game. He's on JSN's on pace for a record-breaking season through like the first 6 or 7 weeks of the football season. And, you know, we're looking at this offense thinking, how in the world is this happening? Like, the offensive line is protecting Sam Darnold. It's all working. They're making their way through their schedule with relative ease. And then there's a Rams game in the middle of the year, week 11, that they lose in a pretty close fashion. But Sam Darnold throws 4 picks in that game. That slows down the passing offense a little bit. And so now you go through a couple weeks where, you know, the offense is a little middling. They come out on top of some of those games because they played teams that were not very good. The Vikings were in there. The Falcons were in there. But the run game starts to come alive a little bit toward the back half of the season. And now you're seeing, okay, teams are backing off the line to take Jackson Smith and Jigba away. And so Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are starting to eat in the run game because of the light boxes they're playing against. So now the Seahawks are taking advantage of that, and they're beating you in the run game now. They did it against the Rams in that December game, week 16. That was kind of the first game that the run game really popped off. Both running backs had good days that day, and then the run game just kept it going from there. From the week 16 on through the playoffs, the run game was the reason why the Seahawks were beating up on teams. They beat the Panthers that way. They beat the Niners in week 18 by running it down their throats and getting the 1 seed. And then they beat the Niners again in the divisional round by running it down their throats again. And so when it came time for the NFC Championship, the run game, it wasn't going to be the way. Zach Charbonnet had an injury, and he's out for the rest of the season. So Ken Walker's got to take it on himself. He has done a great job of that in the NFC Championship game. He did it. He had a nice game, but it was really Sam Darnold that had to come out and win the game for Seattle in the NFC Championship, and he did it. And you know, he had a great performance. He had almost 350 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, and he had no picks and no fumbles, and he made a lot of really smart decisions throughout the course of the game. And so here we are. Seattle's in the Super Bowl, and it's largely because of everything that I said wouldn't work about this team for not only the preseason, but some ways into the season as well. And so, you know, kudos to the Seahawks. They can beat you multiple ways now. That was not the case through the middle of the year. But now they're a really strong team, and they are here. They are in the Super Bowl. So that's how Seattle got here. So how did New England get here? Let's piece together their season a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go, week by week the same way you can with the Seahawks, but I know, last year was their first year without Bill Belichick, and it was disastrous with Gerard Mayo as the head coach, and they quickly moved on from him. Mike Vrabel came in. Drake May is going into his first year as a full-time starter. They sign some veteran free agents like Stephon Diggs and Milton Williams. Is that his name?
Yeah.
On the defensive line. And the identity of this team totally changed when Mike Vrabel came into the room. And Drake May had a great year. We just found out live, I don't know if you saw this, Dallas, that he came 1 vote short of being MVP. Matt Stafford barely eked him out. So congrats to him. But Drake May, in his first full season as a starter, almost wins MVP. They have that nice last place schedule, but start the season with a loss to the Raiders, who ended up with the number 1 pick this year. So, that's just an any given Sunday situation. But then the rest of the way, they only lost 2 more games. They lost to the Bills, and they lost to, I don't remember who their other loss was at this point. But they made it to the playoffs. They were the number 2 seed. They had the same record as the number 1 seed. The Chargers come to town. Justin Herbert looks terrible in that game. Chargers only score 3 points. Then the Texans come to town. CJ Stroud looks terrible in that game. And they win rather easily. And then they're able to outlast the Broncos in a Snow Bowl in Denver. And so here they are playing in the Super Bowl. The regular season was on the back of Drake May. And so far in the playoffs, their defense has really stepped up and been a big reason for their success.
Yeah, totally. The only thing I'll add is the way it went, you started it, and the way it went is, they start the year losing the Raiders, which we didn't know what the Raiders were going to be like at that point. But now looking back, that's a bad loss. And then they go in and they beat the Dolphins, but then they lose to the Steelers in week 3.
Oh, that's right.
So they start 1-2, and then there's the turnaround where we all started to think seriously about them. And that's when they beat up on the Panthers in week 4. And then they turned around and beat the Bills on Sunday Night Football in week 5. And so at that point, they beat the Bills 23-20 on Sunday Night Football in front of the nation. And we're like, wait a minute. Are the Patriots putting something together here? They just had a big game against the Panthers last week. And that's kind of where it started to turn. The discussion started to turn. Drake May started to turn heads, in that turnaround couple weeks. And then from there, they were just cruising until they faced the Bills again. But yeah, so that's kind of where it turned for the Patriots. And they never really looked back from that awesome 2-game stretch where they, really put it on the Panthers and then, beat the team to beat in their division in a close game on national TV. So, this team has been playing with a lot of confidence since then, and that can get you really far. And with a quarterback like Drake May, who, comes super close to winning MVP, as close as anyone can come to winning MVP without winning it. That's how you get to a Super Bowl. You put a good defense behind a quarterback that's talented and good at extending plays and all that good stuff that we'll talk about in a second too. But that's how you get to the Super Bowl. So that's how these teams got here. So let's talk about the matchup a little bit. What are you looking more forward to seeing? What side of the ball? So is it the Seahawks offense versus the Patriots defense, or is it the Patriots offense versus the Seahawks defense that you're looking more forward to seeing how it shakes out?
I think both are interesting, but I'm going to go with the Patriots offense playing against the Seahawks defense, because I think that's where the true strength of both teams lies. Even though it's kind of been maybe reversed in the playoffs so far. Like the Seahawks offense has really taken off, and the Patriots defense has looked as good as it's looked all year. But Drake May, he hasn't looked great in the playoffs so far. The Seahawks have a defense that can really take it to a quarterback and pressure and all that. So I'm interested to see. He hasn't played a playoff game in good weather yet, and it should be good weather in Santa Clara this weekend. So yeah, I want to see what Drake May can do. I want to see the game plan that the Patriots come out with, because so far this playoffs, he has not looked good at all. That Broncos game was a pretty bad game for him overall. He had a couple good runs, including the touchdown run and including the run that iced it at the end. But not a ton of really good throws. And basically just did enough. And it was, again, if Jarrett Stidham isn't the starting quarterback, the Broncos had every opportunity to win that game. So yeah, I'm interested to see they've had 2 weeks to plan for this, obviously, so have the Seahawks. But that's the matchup that I'm curious to see, because I think the Seahawks offense versus the Patriots defense is going to be not the story, I think,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're correct on that. I think the Seahawks have more ability to break a game on the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball for sure. And if the Patriots offense can overcome a defense like the Seahawks, it just silences everybody because of the defenses they would have had to beat on their way to winning the Super Bowl if they win a Super Bowl this year. It would be if there's anybody left who is saying that they haven't played anybody winning the Super Bowl and then pointing to Texans, Broncos, Seahawks as the teams you beat to win there. That should take care of that. But I'll
Chargers
talk
had a good defense too.
and the Chargers had a good defense too, for sure. And so you point to that, and you get that run of 4 teams right there on your way to winning a Super Bowl. I think that does it. And so I'll talk a little bit about the Seahawks offense versus the Patriots defense for my portion of this. I'm interested to see how the Patriots come out against Seattle, what they're going to choose to try to stop, fully stop the whole way, to start the game. They're going to pick that they want to stop the Jackson Smith and Jigba show, or are they going to pick that they want to stop the Seahawks from being able to run the ball and have extended drives? What are they going to pick to come out against? How are they going to start the game? And how are they going to try to force the Seahawks into doing something that's against what they had planned to start with, right? I think with a Kubiak offense, with Seattle's offense, they always want to start with the run. So if I'm the Patriots, I'm maybe coming out and I'm trying to stop that, but you cannot let them throw it over the top to get a fast start to a game, because if we've seen it in this playoffs, like if the Seahawks start fast, whether they're at home or not, that's a really hard thing to come back from. If this defense can start to play with a double-digit lead at some point, like that's really tough for any team to come up against. So the Patriots defense, they have their work cut out for them, but I think I'll be interested to see how they come out against Seattle and what part of their offense they try to stop first before Seahawks can adjust to what they're doing. Okay, so let's get to X Factors. Okay, so I'll go first with my X Factor for the Seahawks. So my X Factor for Seattle is going to be Leonard Williams and Brian Murphy and that interior of the Seahawks defensive line. The Patriots really like to run the ball, straight ahead through the teeth of the offense with both Ramondre Stevenson and Drake May. If Drake May has to run, if he has to scramble, if he has to design a run, they like to run it straight through the middle of the defense. They don't like to boot him out and run him to the outside, which Seattle would probably prefer. But they like to run him right up the middle. And so it's going to be that interior of the Seahawks defensive line and the linebacker level, keeping their eyes on Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson and Drake May, that is going to dictate what the Seahawks defense is able to do in this game, I think. We kind of saw in the Rams game, the Seahawks corners and DBs can cover. They just can't cover forever, right? And so if Drake May's out there extending plays, if Ramondre Stevenson can get going and they can run play action off of that, try to get the ball down the field against Seattle, then these corners, we saw it in the Rams game, they can be gotten by receivers who have talent, and the Patriots have receivers who have talent. So for me, it's the interior of the Seahawks defensive line, their ability to keep Drake May scrambles and design runs to minimal gains, not let them get from 2nd and 9 to 3rd and 4 on a Drake May scramble, things like that, keeping them behind the sticks in that way. And then also dictating the run game to them is how I think is going to be the X factor for Seattle. What about you? What's the X factor for the Seahawks here?
I think it's going to be the pass rush because Drake May, like I said, he had basically an MVP season. In the playoffs so far, he's faced, we already talked about it, 3 really tough defenses, and they got to him and they pressured him a lot. And he has not played well. He's had 3 of his 4 worst games in terms of completion percentage of the entire year have been the last 3. And then 3 of his, like 6 worst games of the year in terms of sack percentage have been the last 3. The Seahawks are not going to be, a step down in terms of these defenses. So I think if they can consistently get to Drake May and pressure him, then there's a real pathway to success. Because I don't think, the I don't expect the same performance out of Sam Darnold and the Seahawks offensive line as we got from Justin Herbert and the Chargers, as we got from CJ Stroud and the Texans, and as we got from Jarrett Stidham and the Broncos, right? I think Sam Darnold is like the combination of Sam Darnold and the Seahawks offensive line is a step above that. So you can't rely on Drake May to just do enough in this game. He's going to have to come out and play MVP level football. And so far in the playoffs, he has not shown the ability to do that with the consistent pressure. Now, he played well against the Texans, but he got a lot of short fields in that game. And still, like, they had the ball a lot of different drives in that game, and he didn't get it done for most of them. And then these other games, he just didn't do much at all. So the Seahawks can keep it up like we've seen them do it. Then this game could be out of reach quickly.
Yep, top five pressure rate in all of football. And when they blitz, they're really close to the top, I think. And so they don't do it a lot, but when they do, they get after it. And so I think look for Mike McDonald to find ways to put Drake May off balance early. He's a young quarterback still. It's time to get aggressive and get him unbalanced there. Okay, let's go to the Patriots. So X factor for the Patriots. For me, I want to see, and I think the X factor will be the Patriots defensive backs versus the Seattle wide receivers and Seattle pass catchers, I'll say. Because I'll include the tight ends in there as well. AJ Barner, he's been more than just a nice to have around type of guy. He's been pretty much a meaningful contributor in the pass game for the course of the season. And then Cooper Kupp has largely, especially in the playoffs and in the second half of the year, has kept that reputation of third and cup, kind of in his bag. He's got that for Seattle in the playoffs and in the second half of the year. If you're in a third down and 5 or 7, he's a guy you're looking for to run to the sticks, turn around, and catch and fall down. And that's what he's been able to do for Seattle. And then of course you have the offensive player of the year, JSN, who we saw in the Rams championship game. If you lose him in coverage, it's over for you. Sam Darnold's going to throw to him and he's going to hit him, and it's going to bury you. And so the Patriots defensive backs, they have a really tough task on their hands when it comes to these pass catchers because of the way that Clint Kubiak's been sort of moving Jackson Smith and Jigba around the formation, making it look like he's going to be in the slot when he's really the outside corner by the way he moves him around in the backfield and stuff. And when you move a wide receiver into the backfield, it's really difficult for a defensive back who's on that guy to know what the heck he's about to be doing. And so you get a step on them, and when Jackson Smith and Jigba gets a step on somebody, he can usually burn them. And so for me, these defensive backs are going to have to play smart. They're going to have to play aggressive, but they're also going to have to play, really sound football, because if you lose any one of these guys, or you back off of them, or you do anything to give them a little bit of room, we've seen them be able to capitalize on that and take advantage. So the Patriots DBs against the Seattle pass catchers, for me, that's the X factor for the Patriots. They got to get that right.
Yeah, I was going to say kind of the same thing. I was going to say Christian Gonzalez specifically because I think he'll likely be matched up with JSN. That's been a huge recipe for the Patriots' success so far in the playoffs. Is they have they've been very advantageous, and they've gotten a lot of turnovers. Right? They've been able to get interceptions, recover fumbles, things like that. And that's what Sam Darnold has been able to avoid so far in the playoffs. It's what we thought, could have been his Achilles heel. It really has not been. And, especially impressive in that Rams game, the turnover margin so far, like before that game for the season matchups, it was like, 7-1 in favor of the Rams going into that game. And Sam Darnold didn't turn the ball over at all. So, he's been playing clean football. I expect that not to change, but the Patriots have been a defense that has been able to force turnovers. And so I think, like the defensive backs in general, I think it all goes together. But if Christian Gonzalez can stay on JSN and make him not much of a factor, then Patriots have a real shot at this. It's just, that's clearly not an easy task.
Yeah, for sure, not easy. But yeah, I think we're both right on the money here. That's going to be what everyone's watching to see how it works out for the Patriots. And if this game is close, I think that's going to be a part of the reason why, is because JSN either got off to a slow start or they were able to adjust at halftime and shut them down. And so I think that's, if the Patriots go down early, that's their way back in. And if they start well, that's a way that they could let it get out of their hands, is if they back off him, if they start well. And so I think that's right too. Okay, so it's time. I am exercising the right to I'm invoking the anti-jinx act of 2025 playoffs, where we have not made a person whose team is playing in a playoff game pick that game. I will invoke that right here on the Super Bowl. So you heard Matt's winner. He gave you his prediction. So let's hear Drew's. Let's start. We're going to make a few predictions on the show here, but let's start with your winner. Give us your winner and how you see this game going.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the Seahawks. That's probably clear based on how I've been talking. When Championship Sunday was all said and done, I was like, well, the Seahawks are going to dominate this game. I have since, leveled out my thinking a little bit. I do think there's potential for a close game here. But ultimately, I just think the Seahawks have too much firepower, and I think the Patriots have been riding a wave of good vibes and favorable matchups. And I think this is going to be their toughest opponent of the year. And I just kind of think they're not going to be ready for it.
All right. So let's hear a score, if you would.
I'm going to say 34-21 Seahawks. And I think maybe the Patriots score late and it makes it feel a little bit closer than it actually was. But I just have not been impressed by Drake May in the playoffs so far. And I don't see why all of a sudden, when the lights are at their absolute brightest and the competition's better than what you've been seeing, or what I imagine will be better than what he's been seeing, that he's all of a sudden going to be able to turn it on. And so I kind of think, it's going to be a kind of a sloppy game from Drake May, and I think the Seahawks are going to play a clean game like we've seen them do in the Super Bowl before. And I think they kind of avenge that loss from 11 years ago.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so with a score like 34 for Seattle, I might be able to guess who your MVP is, but let's hear who your MVP might be.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too creative with this. There's always the chance that JSN scores 3 touchdowns or something and steals it, but I think it's going to be Sam Darnold. It's almost always the quarterback as long as they play a decent game. And I think he will. I think he could easily throw for a couple scores, and Kenneth Walker or JSN or someone like that will really have to steal the show to take MVP away from Sam Darnold. But if he spreads the ball around like he did in the NFC Championship game, like how it was 3 different guys got touchdown catches from Sam Darnold. So like when you spread the love like that, then the only choice for MVP is the quarterback.
Yep, you're right. If it goes that way, that is the sound pick there. And then
this is like kind of surprising because they've had so many quarterbacks drafted to the league. He would be the first USC quarterback to win a Super Bowl.
Yes.
And,
Totally.
as someone who used to root for USC, I just no longer really have rooting interest in college football, but um, that that's great. And, family connections on this show.
Yes, 100%. And yeah, Matt's not here to talk about that, but definitely, we have family ties from this show to Sam Darnold. So, shout out to that. But yeah, you're right. You would be. That's nuts. Shout out to Mark Sanchez, who got to 2 AFC Championship games, but never made it, unfortunately. But okay, so and then for fun, let's go with Gatorade color. So what's going to get no matter who wins, what color is the Gatorade going to be that gets poured on that winning coach?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I've really thought about for a
Yeah,
long time. I've really been
tortured.
weighing all my options ever since last Super Bowl when I incorrectly picked, whatever random color I chose.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna say orange.
Orange. I like orange. It was the color in 48. I like that. And so, not too bad. So yeah, we'll take orange for the Gatorade color. All right. Well, there we go. As I am exercising my right, I will not be predicting. But I'll say this: I'm excited for the game. I think that the Seahawks are going to put on a good game for everybody. And I'm feeling uh, you know, pretty great about how they got here. Beating the Niners into oblivion and then winning that great game against the Rams. Coming one Tariq Woolen uh, taunting penalty away from probably winning that game by 2 scores. Like really, probably winning by 2 scores that game if he hadn't done that. Um, that feels really good. And so it was closer than it needed to be, of course, at the end, because with the Rams, it always has to be. But, an NFC championship game worthy of the two teams that played in it. And so it's cool I'm feeling really good about how they got here. They've beaten some good teams to get here. And so it helps me be confident going into the Super Bowl. But it's a Super Bowl, anything can happen. So we'll see what happens. But we'll be here to talk about it after it's over. So next week's show will be all about the recap of the Super Bowl. What will be the mood? Who is to say? We can't wait to see. We can't wait to watch. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for listening to us if you listened. And make sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And if you prefer audio only, you can listen to us on Spotify as well. Like I said, we'll be back next week to talk Super Bowl recap, and then we'll have an MLB show next week as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Go back and watch our MLB episodes from this week, where we talked about some of the signings that have happened in the last week. We talked about Team Puerto Rico and what the heck's going on over there. So go catch that and let us know in the comments what you think about the Super Bowl. What are your X factors? What are you excited to see? Who's going to win? By how many points? Talk that talk. Let us know in the comments here. We'd love to hear it. And until the Super Bowl recap show on the other side, we will see you there. And take care until next time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.